Part 1. The Old Man by the Fire. The mountain wind whispered like an old prayer through the pine trees. It carried the smell of wood smoke and cold earth, winding its way down into a quiet valley where a small village slept beneath the stars. Among the huts of clay and cedar, one boy lay awake. His name was Ahyoka, which meant he who brings happiness. But tonight, happiness was far from his heart. He stared at the thatched roof above him, fists clenched, breath uneven. His thoughts burned like fire of anger, of shame, of things he wished he could change. Earlier that day, he had fought again. 3 older boys had mocked his worn clothes, pushed him in the mud, laughed at the way his father had died, a hunter lost in a storm. He tried to walk away at first, remembering what the elders always said. The strong do not need to shout. But when they called his mother a beggar, the storm inside him broke loose. He remembered the feel of his fist striking flesh, the taste of blood on his tongue, the horror on his mother's face when she pulled him away. He remembered her tears not for the wounds on his hand, but for the darkness in his eyes. Now he lay awake, feeling that same darkness pulsing quietly inside him. And for the first time, he felt afraid not of anyone else, but of himself. Outside, an owl hooted. And somewhere beyond the trees, a wolf howled long and mournful, echoing across the mountains. Ahyoka turned toward the sound. It felt as if the night itself was calling him. He rose quietly, wrapped his old blanket around his shoulders, and stepped into the cold. Down the slope, past the sleeping huts and silent fields, a faint orange glow flickered. Everyone in the village knew what it was, the fire of Elder Tawa. The old man lived alone near the edge of the forest, where the path met the river. They said he was the keeper of stories, a healer of hearts, and a man who listened to the wind more than to people. Ahyoka hesitated. He had spoken to Tawa only once, when he was little, but something about that lonely fire pulled him now like gravity. When he reached the clearing, the elder was there, sitting cross-legged by the flames, wrapped in a deerskin cloak. His white hair glowed in the firelight. His eyes, sharp and gentle, lifted as Ahyoka approached. Tawa, the wolves are restless tonight. The boy froze. Wolves? Tawa gestured toward the darkness beyond the trees. Tawa, can you not hear them? They howl when a soul trembles. The forest feels everything. My boy Ahyoka lowered his head. Then they must be howling because of me. The elder said nothing for a while. He just stirred the fire with a stick, watching the sparks rise into the cold night. Then he spoke again, quietly. Tawa. Sit, Ahyoka. The fire does not judge. The boy sat down, the warmth brushing his skin. Tawa. Tell me why the wolves are howling inside your heart. So Ahyoka told him everything: the fight, the shame, the fear that something ugly lived inside him. When he finished, the old man nodded slowly. Tawa, I have seen this wolf before, he said. I have heard its growl in many men and warriors, in fathers, even in myself. The boy frowned. You? The elder smiled softly. Tawa, even the wisest are not free from hunger, child. But the hunger can be guided. You see, inside every person, there are two wolves. One is anger born from fear, pride, and pain. The other is peace born from understanding, patience, and love. They live in the same heart and they fight for the same food. Ahyoka. What food? Tawa. Your thoughts, your words, your actions. Everything you do feeds one and starves the other, and the one you feed becomes stronger. The boy stared into the fire, the reflection of two flames flickering in his dark eyes, one bright, one shadowed. Ahyoka. So, which one wins? Tawa leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper that seemed to blend with the wind. Tawa, the one you feed. The silence that followed was deep. Only the fire crackled and the river murmured softly beyond the trees. Ahyoka felt the weight of those words settle on him like snow. He wanted to ask more, but Tawa had already closed his eyes, humming an old melody, a prayer of the mountains. After a long moment, the elder spoke again. Tawa, come tomorrow, boy. At sunrise. Bring nothing but your heart. We will begin Ahyoka. Begin what? Tawa. Feeding the right wolf. When dawn broke, the sky blushed pink over the peaks. Ahyoka returned, breath misting in the cold, and found the elder waiting by the river with two small bowls, one filled with water, the other with ashes. Tawa. These are the wolves, he said. The water is calm, clear, and deep. The ashes are what remains when fire consumes itself. He pointed toward the forest. Tawa. Each day you will face both. When anger rises, your thoughts turn to ash. When peace rises, your thoughts turn to water. You must learn to tell the difference. For days they trained, not with swords or bows, but with silence. Tawa made him carry water from the river to the fire, one bowl at a time, never spilling a drop. He told him to breathe with the rhythm of the wind, to feel the pulse of the earth beneath his feet. He told him to watch the fire without thinking until his mind grew still. And slowly, Ahyoka began to understand that self-control was not about holding back. It was about listening deeply to his own storm. Days became a rhythm of silence and labor. Ahyoka fetched water, chopped wood, and sat by the fire until his heartbeat matched the crackle of the flames. He was beginning to think the elder's lessons were only strange chores. Until that night. The wind changed. It came down from the mountains sharp and wild, rattling the cedar branches like bones. The villagers barred their doors. The animals grew restless. But Tawa's fire still burned, steady and calm. Ahyoka sat across from him, eyes half closed, fighting the restlessness inside. Ahyoka. Why do the wolves call so often now? Tawa. Because they sense that one of their own is learning to listen. Then the elder rose and tossed a handful of cedar needles into the flames. The smoke curled upward, thick and blue. Tawa. Tonight the mountain speaks. Stay awake. Watch what it shows you. The old man stepped back into the shadows, leaving Ahyoka alone with the fire and the whispering dark. The smoke thickened, wrapping around him like a living thing. His eyelids grew heavy. The world bent and folded, fire becoming forest, smoke becoming cloud, until he found himself standing beneath an enormous silver moon. The dream had begun. The forest glowed pale, every leaf lit by moonlight. Then came the sound, a low, thunderous growl from the shadows. From the darkness stepped a black wolf, fur rough as burnt bark, eyes blazing red. It circled him slowly, hunger in every motion. Behind him, another presence stirred quiet as falling snow. A white wolf emerged from the light, eyes calm and endless. The two wolves faced each other, their breaths turning to mist. Black Wolf. You need me, boy. I give you fire, courage, the strength to strike back. White Wolf. And I give you peace, the strength to hold back. They began to circle him. The air shook with their tension. Black Wolf. They mock you, they wound you. Feed me, and none will ever touch you again. White Wolf. Feed me, and no wound will ever own you again. Ahyoka's heart pounded. The black wolf's breath was hot against his skin. Its eyes showed every memory of pain and humiliation. The white wolf's eyes showed something else: his mother's smile, the calm of the river, the soft hands that once wiped his tears. Ahyoka. I don't know who to trust. Both wolves stepped closer, their bodies merging into shadow and light around him. Black Wolf. I am your power. White Wolf. I am your peace. Then they leapt not at each other, but into him. He gasped as fire and ice collided inside his chest. He fell to his knees, hands pressed to his heart, the world spinning with light. He could feel them both, the roar and the whisper, the fury and the calm. And in that burning storm, a single thought rose like a clear note. I can choose. The words echoed through him louder than thunder. He shouted them into the dream, and the forest exploded into light. He woke with the dawn. The fire still glowed faintly, and Elder Tawa sat beside it, watching him. Tawa. You have seen them. Ahyoka. Yes, they were inside me. Tawa. They always were. What did you learn? The boy hesitated, still trembling. Ahyoka. That they both want to live, but only one deserves to. The elder smiled. Tawa. Then your real training begins. He placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. Tawa. Every sunrise, feed the wolf of peace in your words, your choices, your silence. One day the other will grow weak, but never gone. That is the balance of life. Ahyoka nodded, eyes bright with new understanding. The morning wind lifted the smoke toward the mountains, carrying with it the first breath of wisdom. In that quiet dawn, a boy learned the first truth of strength. Power is not in the hand that strikes, but in the heart that restrains. The wolves within us never die, but peace begins the moment we choose which one to feed. The camera of imagination pans upward, smoke fading into clouds, the sound of two distant howls mingling above the trees. Part 2. The Dream of the Wolves. Dawn spilled gold across the valley. Smoke from the village fires climbed gently into a pale sky. The mountain air smelled of cedar and frost. Ahyoka woke beside the dying embers, the dream still pulsing behind his eyes. He could feel the wolves inside him, quiet now but real. One heartbeat burned like fire, the other cooled him like water. He touched the ground, it was damp with dew. The world looked new. And yet as he stood, he felt an unease. The calm of the dream had vanished, replaced by something heavier than knowing that peace must be earned every single day. Elder Tawa was already awake, kneeling by the river, humming a tune that blended with the running water. When he saw Ahyoka, he smiled. Tawa, the mountain has spoken to you. Ahyoka, I saw them. They are part of me. Tawa, then today you begin to walk with them. He handed the boy a small bundle of dried herbs. Tawa, go into the village. Give these to the healer. Watch your steps, watch your words. The wolves will walk beside you. Ahyoka nodded, though his stomach knotted. He had not gone back since the fight. The thought of facing those same boys twisted his courage. Still, he bowed to the elder and started down the path. The village buzzed with morning life. Women grinding maize, children chasing a ragged ball, the smell of bread and smoke mixing in the air. But when Ahyoka appeared, whispers followed him like shadows. That's the boy who fought at the well. His mother begged the council for forgiveness. Look at his eyes still burning. He kept walking, eyes on the ground. Inside, he felt the black wolf stir, offended by their words. Its growl was a thought. They still see you as weak. His hands clenched. Then, faintly, another voice, the white wolf, soft and steady. Walk through their words. They cannot touch you if you do not bite. He inhaled slowly, remembering the elder's lesson. Breathe with the wind. Feed the calm. When he reached the healer's hut, the old woman smiled, accepting the herbs. Healer, Tawa still trusts you. That means the mountain does too. Her words cooled the heat in his chest. But as he turned to leave, a familiar voice cut through the morning. Look who crawls back. The brave little wolf cub. It was Nokan, one of the boys from the fight. He stood with two friends grinning. Ahyoka felt the dark wolf rise again, teeth, fire, memory. For a heartbeat, he saw red. Then Tawa's words whispered through him like wind through leaves. The fire does not judge. The one you feed becomes stronger. He looked straight at Nokan, not with hatred, but with something quieter sadness. Ahyoka, I don't want to fight anymore. Laughter erupted from the boys. Nokan, afraid you'll lose? Ahyoka, no, afraid I'll win and lose myself. For a moment, even the birds stopped. The other boys looked confused, almost embarrassed. Nokan spat on the ground. Strange words for someone who used to swing his fists. Then he turned away. Ahyoka felt the black wolf snarl, wounded by pride. But the white wolf's presence grew warmer. He realized that walking away had taken more strength than any punch he'd ever thrown. By the time he returned to the elder's hut, dusk painted the trees in copper and violet. Tawa waited beside the fire, stirring a pot of herbs. Tawa, so, which wolf ate today? Ahyoka, both were hungry. But I fed the quiet one. The elder smiled, eyes glinting in the firelight. Tawa, then it will grow strong enough to guide you when storms come. He handed the boy a small carved pendant shaped like a wolf's head, half dark, half light. Tawa, keep this close. It reminds you that peace is not silence. Peace is choice. That night, Ahyoka slept again by the fire, the pendant warm in his hand. He dreamed not of battle, but of a forest path, glowing under moonlight, two shadows walking beside him, no longer fighting, simply watching. And far away, thunder rumbled not of danger, but of change. The moon was high when Elder Tawa's voice stirred him from sleep. Tawa, wake, Ahyoka. The night calls for your courage. The fire still glowed faintly, painting the elder's face in orange and gold. He carried two torches and a leather satchel slung over his shoulder. Ahyoka, where are we going? Tawa, to meet the wolves in their truest form. The boy followed him through the forest. The air was cold and wet, and every breath came out as mist. Crickets whispered. Owls turned their heads to watch them pass. After what felt like hours, they reached the edge of the great river, a furious current, twisting between rocks, glinting under the moon like silver fire. Tawa planted one torch in the ground. Tawa, do you hear it? The roar of the water filled Ahyoka's ears. Tawa, that is the voice of the world, strong, wild, unending. To master yourself, you must learn to stand in its song. He handed the second torch to the boy. Tawa, cross to the other side, alone. Ahyoka blinked. The water is deep, the current. Tawa, yes, it will fight you. So will your fear. Which one you listen to decides who survives the night. The elder stepped back into the trees. The boy was alone. He stood on the rocky bank, staring at the foaming water. The river looked alive, twisting and flashing like a snake made of light. He remembered the story his mother told him when he was small, that spirits lived in the river, testing those who dared to cross. For a moment, he felt that old childhood terror creeping back. The dark wolf stirred inside him, its growl blending with the roar of the current. You'll drown. You're not ready. Go back. He clenched the torch tighter. No. Another voice answered, soft, patient. The white wolf. Do not fight the river. Listen to it. Become part of its flow. He took a step into the freezing water. The shock bit into his skin like a blade. Another step and another until the current reached his waist, trying to pull him away. He dug his feet into the riverbed and pushed forward. Each surge of water slammed into him like a living force. Each one whispered his doubts about his father, his failures, his worth. The dark wolf roared, "You are nothing! You are weak!" He screamed back, but no sound came, only breath and water. Then suddenly his foot slipped. The torch fell from his hand, vanishing into the river. The current caught him, dragging him under. Cold swallowed him whole. He tumbled in darkness, arms flailing, lungs burning. Shapes of light flashed around him, not the moon, but two glowing eyes, one golden, one crimson. The wolves. They swam beside him in the whirl of water, not as flesh and fur, but as spirits. Black Wolf, in his mind, you see? You should have listened to me. Fear keeps you alive. White Wolf, no. Fear keeps you from living. He reached for the white light, the calm and the chaos, and it grew brighter, cutting through the dark like dawn, breaking the horizon. His lungs screamed. His vision dimmed. But something in him, that quiet strength Elder Tawa had awakened, rose higher than the panic. He stopped struggling and let the water carry him. He let go of control, and in that surrender, he found it. The current lifted him upward. He broke through the surface, gasping for air. The moon shone above like a silver eye, and his hands found the rocks at the far bank. He crawled out, soaked and shaking, but alive. The wolves' howls echoed from both sides of the river, fierce, haunting, yet somehow in harmony. Ahyoka lay there for a long time, staring at the stars through tears and river water. Ahyoka, whispering, I didn't fight, I flowed. And deep inside, he felt the white wolf curl around his heart, quiet, proud, alive. When he returned at dawn, Elder Tawa sat where he had been before, eyes closed in prayer. He looked up as the boy appeared dripping wet, clothes torn, torch gone. Tawa, so the river did not take you. Ahyoka, it tried. But I stopped fighting. The elder smiled as if that was the answer he had hoped for. Tawa, then you understand. Strength is not in resisting what is, but in choosing what to hold and what to let pass. He took a coal from the fire and dropped it into Ahyoka's palm. The boy flinched, but the coal did not burn. Tawa's eyes gleamed. Tawa, you no longer fear the flame inside you. You have learned the first lesson of balance. Ahyoka bowed, eyes bright with silent tears. That night, Ahyoka faced no enemy, Yet he fought the greatest battle of all, the one within his own heart. The black wolf of fear and the white wolf of peace still walked beside him, but now he knew how to listen. And for the first time, the sound of the river did not frighten him. It sounded like freedom. Part 3. The Shadow in the Village. Listen, my child, and you will hear how Ahyoka, the boy who faced the river, walked once more into the world of men. The forest that had been his teacher was now behind him. The wind carried the smell of cedar smoke and earth the scent of his village. He had left as a restless boy filled with fire and returned as a quiet young man whose eyes saw deeper than before. The people did not see it at first. To them, he was still the same wanderer who had gone chasing old stories with the Elder Tawa. But Ahyoka's heart was not the same. As he entered the village, children ran beside him, laughing, asking if he had seen spirits or wolves in the mountains. He smiled and nodded. "Yes," he said softly. "I met them both and they taught me how to walk." The children giggled, not understanding. But an old woman sitting by her fire looked up sharply. She understood. Ahyoka's mother came running, tears in her eyes, her hands trembling as she held his face. "You've grown thin, my son, but there is light in your eyes." He knelt and pressed his forehead to hers. "The forest fed me," he said, smiling, "and the river washed away what I didn't need." That night, the village gathered for a feast to celebrate his return. The drums beat, the fire danced, and Ahyoka's heart was warm. He sat beside Elder Tawa, who watched quietly from the edge of the light. "Do not mistake peace for weakness," the elder whispered. "The true test will come among your own people." Ahyoka did not understand then, but he would soon enough. There was a young man in the village named Chaska, once Ahyoka's closest friend. They had hunted together as boys, raced through the fields, shared laughter and secrets. But while Ahyoka had been away, Chaska had become a leader among the hunters, proud, admired, and strong. When Ahyoka returned and people began to speak of his calm wisdom, jealousy crept like smoke into Chaska's heart. He did not show it at first. He smiled, clapped his friend on the back, and said, "The spirits must have favored you, brother. You have their calm." But his eyes did not smile. In the days that followed, people came to Ahyoka for advice. When two neighbors quarreled over land, he helped them make peace. When a child was lost in the woods, it was Ahyoka who found her and carried her home. And the people began to whisper, "He is wise. He carries the elder's spirit within him." Those words burned in Chaska's chest. He began to avoid Ahyoka, and when they met, his voice grew colder. One night, the council gathered to choose a new guardian of the village boundaries, a role of great honor. Both Ahyoka and Chaska were called to stand before the fire. The old chief looked at them and said, "One has the strength of the body, and one has the strength of the spirit. The people will decide who guards them," the villagers murmured. Some called for Chaska. He was brave and skilled. Others called for Ahyoka. They trusted his calm and fairness. Chaska's jaw tightened. He went away when we needed men, he said. Now he returns and thinks himself wise. Ahyoka's heart tightened, but he bowed his head and said nothing. Wisdom does not seek the seat of power, he whispered. But silence can sometimes sound like pride to ears already poisoned by envy. The murmurs grew louder, and when the chief finally spoke, his voice carried sorrow. The wolves of division are stirring among us. We will wait until peace returns to our hearts. The meeting ended in unease. That night, as the fire burned low, Ahyoka sat alone outside his hut, looking toward the dark forest. He could almost hear the growl of the black wolf deep inside him. You are mocked. You are wronged. Show them your strength. And then the voice of the white wolf, soft but steady. Let the truth speak for itself. Time is a clearer judge than men. He closed his eyes and chose silence. But silence would not be enough to protect him from what was coming. The wind turned colder in the following days. Something unseen was moving through the village, fear, suspicion, perhaps fate itself. And in that shadow, tragedy began to grow its roots. Listen again, my child, for the fire is still burning, and its light has more to tell. The days that followed were heavy ones in Ahyoka's village. The drums were silent, and laughter no longer danced through the air. There was talk of a thief among the people. Someone had stolen a sacred bundle from the chief's hut. Inside that bundle were old feathers, songs written on bark, and a stone said to belong to the ancestors. It was not gold or grain, but it was sacred, the soul of the village itself. The loss shook everyone. The old women wept. The warriors whispered of curses and spirits. At first, no one suspected Ahyoka. He spent his days helping elders, fetching water, teaching children how to carve flutes from willow branches. But jealousy is like a coal hidden in dry grass. It waits for wind. And Chaska became that wind. He went from hut to hut, speaking softly. Who else could walk unseen at night? Who else knows the ways of spirits in silence? People began to wonder. They remembered how Ahyoka had returned from the forest, changed, quiet, strange. They remembered the story of the river and the wolves, and fear grew in their hearts. When the moon rose full, the chief called the villagers to the central fire. The sacred bundle must be returned before dawn, he said. If the thief remains hidden, the spirits will turn their backs on us. The crowd murmured like restless leaves. Then Chaska stepped forward. I saw someone near the chief's hut 2 nights ago, he said. A shadow tall and silent. I thought it was my friend Ahyoka, but perhaps I was mistaken. The fire cracked. All eyes turned to Ahyoka. Ahyoka rose slowly. His face was calm, but his heart trembled. You think I would steal what belongs to our ancestors? He asked quietly. The forest has already given me more than I deserve. I need no treasures, but fear does not listen to calm voices. It listens to noise, and there was plenty of that now. He speaks with spirits. He walks at night. Maybe the river changed him. The voices grew louder, and Ahyoka felt the warmth of the fire turn into heat against his skin. Elder Tawa, who had been silent until then, stood and lifted his hand. "Enough," he said. "This boy's spirit is pure. I have seen it myself." But even the elder's voice could not calm the crowd. Suspicion had already planted its roots too deep. That night they searched Ahyoka's hut, and beneath the woven mat where he slept, they found it the sacred stone of the ancestors. Gasps filled the air. Ahyoka stared in disbelief. "That is not mine," he whispered. But Chaska's eyes were hard. "Then how did it come to rest beneath your bed?" Ahyoka looked at the faces around him, people he had helped, children he had taught. Now they stepped back from him as if he carried disease. He could feel their fear like a wall of ice. "I do not know," he said softly. "But the truth will rise as the sun rises after night." No one answered. By the law of the village, one who disrespected the ancestors could not stay within the sacred grounds. And so, before dawn, they led Ahyoka to the edge of the forest. Elder Tawa followed behind, leaning on his staff. The boy's mother wept, clutching at his arm, but the guards pulled her away. "Let him go," someone said. "If he is innocent, the spirits will return him." The elder placed a hand on Ahyoka's shoulder. "Walk with a calm heart," he whispered. "When the wolves fight again inside, you remember which one you have already chosen to feed." Ahyoka bowed low before his teacher. He did not argue, did not cry, did not curse the village. He turned toward the dark forest and began to walk. As he passed the boundary stone, the people looked away. Only the wind and the sound of distant thunder followed him into the trees. That night, the storm broke open the sky. Rain fell like a river from the heavens, drenching his clothes, his skin, his spirit. He walked for hours until he could no longer see the path. And then he fell to his knees in the mud and wept. "I did not steal it," he cried to the storm. "Why have they turned against me?" His voice vanished in the roar of thunder. Then from the shadows between the trees came the sound of a low, familiar growl. The black wolf stepped out, its eyes glowing like red coals. "Black Wolf, why do you cry for those who cast you out?" "Feed me, Ahyoka. Feed me your rage." He trembled. "Go away." But the wolf came closer, circling him. "They betrayed you. They chose fear over truth. Let me take your pain. I will make you strong again." The wind howled, and for a moment, the anger inside him rose a wildfire ready to burn everything it touched. He wanted to scream, to break, to hate. Then, through the storm, another presence appeared. Faint, gentle, but steady. The white wolf stood on a rock above the torrent, its fur shimmering with the light of lightning. It said nothing. It only looked at him calm, patient, waiting. And Ahyoka, broken and soaked and trembling, lowered his head. He closed his eyes, and instead of shouting into the storm, he whispered a prayer. "Great Spirit, let me feed the right one." The black wolf snarled and vanished into the rain, and for the rest of that night, Ahyoka walked in silence, following the dim light that lived within his heart. Listen well, my child, for the fire burns low now, and its light flickers with sorrow. This is the part of the tale where hearts are tested and tears fall like rain upon the earth. The storm that night tore through the valley like an angry spirit. The river rose and broke its banks. Huts were swept away, crops flattened, and the sacred fire at the center of the village was drowned. When dawn came, the village was silent, ruined, and cold. The people shivered in their drenched clothes, staring at what was once their home. And as they searched through the wreckage, one voice rose a cry of horror and grief. The old chief's hut had collapsed, and beneath it lay Elder Tawa, crushed by a fallen beam. His body was broken, but his face was peaceful as if he had fallen asleep mid-prayer. The villagers gathered around him, and the women wailed. "He was the bridge between us and the spirits," they said. "Now who will guide us?" And in that silence, guilt began to whisper in their hearts. Chaska was the first to break. He knelt beside the elder's body, his hands shaking, his eyes wide with shame. "Forgive me," he whispered. "It was I who hid the sacred stone beneath Ahyoka's bed." Gasps rippled through the crowd like a cold wind. "I was jealous, Eeyore," he said, sobbing. "He had peace in his heart, and I could not find it in mine. I wanted to see him fall just once. I never meant for this." The chief closed his eyes. No one spoke. The truth hung in the air like smoke, bitter, heavy, unending. "We cast out the innocent," said one woman. "We turned our backs on the one who never raised his voice against us." The villagers bowed their heads in shame. The elder who had defended Ahyoka was gone, and the boy they had exiled was lost to the forest. Regret came too late, as it often does. 3 days passed before anyone saw him again. At dusk on the third day, as the last of the storm clouds faded, a lone figure appeared at the edge of the village. He was thin, his clothes torn, his eyes calm as still water. It was Ahyoka. He carried on his back a bundle of firewood, dry, clean, ready to burn. Without a word, he walked to the center of the village where the sacred fire had died. He laid the wood down, took a spark from his own small torch, and lit it. Flames rose, trembling at first, then growing stronger until the warmth returned to the people's faces. No one dared to speak. Finally, the chief stepped forward and said softly, "The truth has come back with you, my son. We wronged you." Ahyoka looked around at their faces, those who had doubted him, feared him, judged him. There was no anger in his eyes, only sadness and a quiet kind of strength. "You wronged yourselves," he said, "but the spirits forgive those who learn." Then he turned to Chaska, who still knelt beside the elder's body. The man could not lift his head, could not meet Ahyoka's gaze. Ahyoka knelt before him and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Brother," he said softly, You have lost more than I. You lost your peace. Take it back." Tears fell from Chaska's eyes. "How can you forgive me?" "Because," said Ahyoka, "the black wolf within me asked that same question." And the white wolf answered, "Forgiveness is the only food that makes both of us quiet." They buried Elder Tawa at sunrise on the hill above the village. The wind was gentle, carrying the scent of wet earth and pine. Ahyoka stood before the grave, silent for a long time. "You taught me to listen," he whispered. "Now your voice will live in my silence." When he returned to the village, the people greeted him with bowed heads. They asked him to take the elder's place as guide and teacher. But Ahyoka shook his head. "I am still learning," he said. "The wolves within me are not done with their fight." He stayed to help rebuild the homes, to teach the children, to heal the hearts of the people, but he carried the loss of his teacher like a hidden scar. And each evening, when the fire burned low, he would walk to the riverbank, kneel beside the water, and whisper a prayer. "Let me feed the right wolf, even when it hurts." So, my child, remember this part of the tale, for it carries the heart of all wisdom. When anger and jealousy rise, they burn the hands that hold them. But when forgiveness rises, it cools even the fire of loss. The black wolf grows loud when pain visits the heart, but it cannot survive if you offer it peace instead of rage. Part 4. The Journey into Silence. The dawn came soft and golden. Mist curled around the huts of the village, wrapping them in threads of silver. The smell of damp earth lingered, but the storm's wounds had begun to heal. Ahyoka stood at the edge of the village with his small leather satchel. Inside were only three things: a smooth river stone, a piece of bread, and a wooden flute carved by Elder Tawa years ago. He looked back one last time. Children ran between the huts. The fire smoked gently in the square. Peace had returned, but not the kind he sought. The voices of the villagers rose in farewell, though many could not bring themselves to speak. Their eyes followed him as he stepped onto the forest path, barefoot, the morning dew glistening beneath his feet. He did not look back again. "Where are you going, Ahyoka?" a young boy called out. "To listen," Ahyoka replied. "Truly listen." And so he began the long journey north toward the mountains where the sky met the earth. For 7 days, Ahyoka walked. He crossed rivers and meadows, climbed hills where the air grew thin, and slept beneath the stars. At night, he would hear the wolves again, one howl deep and sorrowful, the other clear and calm. He no longer feared them. Instead, he listened to their voices as if they were teachers calling him toward something unseen. On the 8th day, he entered a forest so quiet that even the birds dared not sing. The leaves whispered in a language older than man, and each step he took echoed softly through the moss. He came upon a clearing with a pool of still water at its heart. The surface reflected the sky perfectly, so perfectly that it seemed he could fall into it and touch the clouds. Ahyoka knelt beside the pool. He placed his hands together and whispered, If there is truth, let me hear it in this silence." But the forest gave no answer. Only his breath stirred the stillness. That night, he lit a small fire beside the pool and played Elder Tawa's flute. The melody drifted through the trees, simple, sorrowful, and full of longing. When the last note faded, a rustle came from the darkness. A figure stepped into the firelight, an old woman wrapped in a cloak of gray feathers. Her eyes shone like moonlight on snow. "You play the song of the lost," she said. "Few remember that tune." Ahyoka bowed respectfully. "I learned it from my teacher." "It keeps the wolves quiet inside me." The woman smiled. "Ah, the wolves. You walk with them still?" "Always," he replied. "They are a part of me." She sat across from him, hands outstretched to the warmth. "The forest speaks to those who have emptied their hearts," she said. "But you carry a storm within you, still one of sorrow and guilt. If you wish to hear the voice of peace, you must let the silence devour you." "Devour me?" he asked. "Yes," she whispered. "Let it strip away everything you think you are. Only then will you know which wolf remains when all else is gone." And with that, she vanished into the night like smoke carried away by the wind. The next morning, Ahyoka did as the woman said. He extinguished his fire and sat beside the pool. He did not eat. He did not move. He only breathed in rhythm with the world around him. Hours passed. Days passed. He listened to the whisper of the wind, the slow ripple of water, the beating of his heart. At first, thoughts came like flies. Memories of the village, the storm, Elder Tawa's death. Pain rose like thunder in his chest, but he did not fight it. He let each thought rise and fall, until they no longer clung to him. At night, he heard the wolves again, one howling nearby, the other far away. Their cries filled the valley, rising and falling like waves. Then, one night, something changed. The wolves' voices merged, two tones becoming one, and Ahyoka felt something shift deep within his heart. "I am not two," he whispered. "I am both." And neither tears rolled down his face, not of sadness, but of release. He felt as though the weight of years had lifted. The silence no longer frightened him. It embraced him. On the seventh night of his vigil, the moon hung full and bright above the pool. Ahyoka gazed into the still water and saw not his reflection, but a vision. He saw two wolves standing before him on the surface of the pool. One black as the starless sky, eyes burning with fire. The other white as snow, eyes glowing like dawn. They circled each other in silence. Then the white wolf spoke in a voice that was both his own and not his own. "You have starved us both long enough," it said. "Then what must I do?" asked Ahyoka. "Feed us," the white wolf said, "but feed us wisely. Feed the black wolf your courage so he guards you, not destroys you. Feed the white wolf your compassion so he guides you, not blinds you. Together we will walk beside you, alone we will devour you." Then the two wolves stepped forward and merged into one, a creature of shimmering gray, half light and half shadow. Ahyoka reached out his hand, and the creature placed its head against his palm. Its warmth spread through him like fire through snow. When he looked again, the vision was gone, but his heart was still burning with its truth. When morning came, Ahyoka rose. He looked at the forest, now bright with sunlight, and for the first time he heard it. The hidden rhythm of life, the chirp of a bird, the rustle of leaves, the soft trickle of the stream. Each sound was part of one great harmony. He smiled. The silence had not devoured him, it had given him back the world. He lifted the flute to his lips and played. The melody that came forth was no longer sorrowful. It was alive, the sound of balance, of peace hard earned through pain. And in the distance, two wolves howled together, their voices rising as one. When Ahyoka descended from the forest, his steps were light. He carried no burden, only calm. He understood now that peace was not something to find. It was something to make moment by moment by choosing which part of himself to feed. He spoke softly to the wind as he walked. I cannot kill the darkness within me. I can only teach it to walk beside my light. And the wind answered with a whisper that sounded almost like Elder Tawa's voice. Now you have learned to listen. Part 5. The test of fire seasons had changed by the time Ahyoka descended from the mountains. The air was softer now, touched with the scent of spring blossoms. He walked with slow, steady steps, a walking stick in hand and a calm light in his eyes. The man who left the village had been wounded by doubt. The one returning had learned to make peace with his pain. But peace, as the spirits often teach, is never tested in silence. It must walk through the fire of chaos to prove itself true. When Ahyoka reached the valley, he saw smoke not from home fires, but from burning fields. The crops were destroyed, the earth scarred. Villagers ran in panic. Children hid in huts. Men shouted orders that dissolved into confusion. A band of raiders had come down from the northern plains, fierce men who stole what they could not grow, their hearts hardened by hunger and war. Ahyoka approached quietly, his presence almost invisible amidst the chaos. He found the chief older now, wearied trying to rally the people. We have nothing left to give, the chief said. If we fight, we die. If we surrender, we starve. When he saw Ahyoka, he paused as if seeing a spirit. You returned, he whispered. We thought you were gone to the world of shadows. Ahyoka bowed slightly. The mountains taught me to listen, he said. Now I will listen to what the fire asks of us. That night, the villagers gathered near the sacred fire newly rebuilt since the great storm. Fear burned in their eyes. We cannot fight them, said one man. They are stronger. Then let us burn our stores before they take them, another cried. Better ashes than thieves. Anger spread like wildfire. Mothers clutched their children. Men sharpened tools. The sound of hatred began to drown out reason. Ahyoka watched in silence. Inside him, he felt the two wolves stir, the black one, hungry for vengeance, the white one whispering patience. He remembered the vision by the still water. The wolves had told him, "Feed us wisely." He stepped forward and raised his hand. "My brothers, my sisters," he said, "listen to the fire, not to your fear. The flames you hold in your hearts will burn you before they ever reach your enemies." But one of the younger men, desperate and angry, shouted, "You speak of peace because you fear to fight. You'd let them take our homes and call it wisdom?" A murmur rose in agreement. Ahyoka met the man's eyes and said softly, "No, my son. I speak of strength. Peace is not the absence of battle, it is the power to choose which battle is worth your soul." The man turned away, frustrated. The people remained torn, caught between fear and faith. Before dawn, the raiders came. Their torches glowed like a red river flowing down from the hills. They surrounded the village, shouting, their weapons gleaming in the dim light. Ahyoka stood near the sacred fire. He closed his eyes, breathed deeply, and whispered, "May my wolves walk with me." Then he picked up his staff and stepped forward alone. The raiders laughed when they saw him. "One man to greet us?" their leader mocked. "One man who knows that hate eats its own heart," Ahyoka replied. The leader frowned. "We have come for food and gold." "You will find neither," Ahyoka said, "but I can offer you something else." The leader sneered. "And what can a wanderer offer to warriors?" "A story," Ahyoka said. "The story of the two wolves." The raiders hesitated. The flames crackled. The leader waved his hand. "Speak then, but speak quickly before we take what we came for." And so Ahyoka began. "Long ago," he said, "a warrior came to the mountains filled with rage. He had lost everything: his home, his family, his name. He hunted the man who had wronged him, but the more he hunted, the emptier he became. One night he met an old spirit who told him, 'Inside you, two wolves fight. One lives on anger and hate, the other on forgiveness and love.' The warrior asked which one wins. The spirit answered, 'The one you feed.' The warrior wanted to feed only the white wolf, but the black one starved, and in its hunger, it turned wild. So the warrior learned that both wolves must eat, one from courage, one from compassion, and together they made him whole. And when his enemies came, he saw them not as monsters, but as men who had also lost their way." Ayoka's voice softened. The raiders stood silent, the firelight flickering across their faces. "I learned that story from life," Ahyoka said, "and I offer it to you because I see the same hunger in your eyes that once lived in mine." For a long moment, no one spoke. The night was filled only with the sound of crackling fire and the sigh of the wind. Then one of the raiders, younger, trembling, stepped forward. "We lost our homes," he said quietly. "The river dried up. Our children are hungry." Ahyoka nodded slowly. "Then let us feed them," he said. "Not with hatred, but with hope." He turned to the villagers who had gathered behind him. "We have little but not Nothing. Let us share what remains. A full heart can turn enemies into brothers. The villagers hesitated, but then an old woman stepped forward, carrying a basket of bread. She placed it between them. The Elder Tawa once said, "A shared meal is stronger than a shared sword." Others followed, bringing dried grain, fruit, and water. The raiders stared in disbelief. Their leader looked at Ahyoka, uncertain, his expression torn between shame and pride. Finally, he dropped his weapon to the ground. "We came for war," he said, but found something greater. And so the fire that was meant to destroy became a fire of unity. The villagers and raiders sat together that night, eating in silence beneath the stars. When the sun rose, peace had settled over the valley like morning mist. The raiders, now guests, helped rebuild the broken fields. Children who once hid now played together, laughing. Ahyoka watched from a distance, his heart heavy and light at once. He felt the black wolf sleeping peacefully inside him, fed, not starved, calm, not violent. The white wolf rested too, quiet and satisfied. The chief came to him and said, "You saved us again, Ahyoka. Not with strength, but with spirit." Ahyoka smiled faintly. "No," he said, "the people saved themselves. I only reminded them which wolf to feed." And so the tale teaches, peace is not the absence of danger. It is the power to stand before danger and choose compassion over fear. Strength is not in the hands that strike. It is in the heart that holds its fire until it becomes light. That night, as Ahyoka sat by the sacred fire, he whispered a prayer. "Let me always feed both wolves courage to protect, kindness to forgive." And somewhere in the distant hills, two howls rose together. One deep and fierce, the other soft and pure, blending into a single song. Part 6. The wisdom of the flame. Years passed like the slow turning of the moon. The valley healed, the forests grew lush again, and laughter returned to the village. The raiders who had once come in fury became farmers and craftsmen, their children learning beside the villagers' children. And Ahyoka, once a restless wanderer, had become their guide. Though he never called himself a leader, he still rose before dawn, still walked by the river, still carried the wooden flute that Elder Tawa had carved. His hair had turned silver, his steps slower, but his eyes shone with the same gentle fire that once burned in the mountains. He had learned that true wisdom is not found in words, but in silence, and in how one treats others when no one is watching. Every evening, he would sit by the sacred fire, surrounded by children, and tell them stories. Stories of stars, rivers, spirits, and always the story of the two wolves. "Inside each of you," he would say, "two wolves live. One is made of anger, envy, and fear. The other is made of love, courage, and peace. They fight every day. And when the children would ask, 'Which one wins, grandfather?' he would smile and answer, 'The one you feed, but remember, feed both wisely.'" Among the children who gathered by the fire was one boy named Talon. He was clever and kind, but wild-hearted, his temper fierce as summer lightning. He loved Ahyoka deeply, but he did not understand him. "Grandfather," Talon said one night, "how can we feed the black wolf and not become evil?" Ahyoka chuckled softly. "Because the black wolf is not evil, my son. It is our strength, our passion, our will to survive. But when left hungry, it grows desperate. When fed with hate, it becomes blind. Feed it courage, and it will protect you." The boy frowned, trying to understand. "And the white wolf?" "Feed it kindness, forgiveness, and joy. It will guide you when the path grows dark." Talon nodded but said nothing more. Deep down, he wanted to believe, but life would soon test him in a way words could not. One evening, dark clouds gathered over the valley, heavy, restless clouds that carried more than rain. A group of strangers arrived, traders from the southern lands bringing stories of war and greed. They came not to trade fairly, but to take advantage. When refused, they grew violent, striking down one of the villagers in rage before fleeing into the woods. Talon saw it happen. The man they struck was his own father. Though his father survived, the wound left him weak, bedridden. The boy's heart filled with fire. The black wolf within him howled, demanding vengeance. He ran to the forest, ignoring Ahyoka's calls. The villagers followed, but Ahyoka raised his hand. "Let him go," he said quietly. "This is his night of trial." Talon ran deep into the forest, heart pounding. He found the tracks of the raiders and followed them by moonlight, his knife in hand, his mind burning with fury. Every step fed the black wolf. Every breath whispered, "They hurt your father, make them pay." But when he found them, three men huddled around a small fire, something inside him hesitated. They were not warriors. They were tired, hungry, frightened. One man's arm was wounded. Another's eyes were hollow from sleeplessness. Still, his anger shouted louder. He crept closer, knife trembling in his hand. But before he could move, a voice whispered from the shadows, calm and steady, like the wind before dawn. "Will you become the monster you hate?" Talon froze. It was Ahyoka. The old man stepped into the light of the stranger's fire, his face calm, his eyes deep with sadness. The traders leapt to their feet, startled, but Ahyoka raised his hand. "Sit," he said softly. "No more blood tonight." The men looked at each other, then at Talon, whose knife shook in his hand. He could not speak. His breath came hard and tears filled his eyes. "They hurt my father," he cried. "Yes," said Ahyoka gently. "And if you kill them, you will hurt yourself. And the wolves inside you will never stop fighting." The boy dropped to his knees, trembling. "I can't forgive them." "Then don't," said Ahyoka. "Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is remembering without letting the pain rule you." Ahyoka turned to the traders, who stood in shame. "You came in greed," he said, "and you found your reflection in the eyes of a boy you nearly destroyed." What will you do with that truth? One man fell to his knees. We were desperate, he said. The drought burned our fields. We thought only of survival. Ahyoka nodded slowly. Then take this chance to survive with honor. He turned to Talon. Come, my son. We will take them back to the village. Let the wounded be healed, and let the wolves in your heart sleep. Talon hesitated, then nodded. He wiped his tears and sheathed his knife. As they walked back, Ahyoka placed a hand on his shoulder. You see now, he said, peace is not weak. It is the hardest path of all. But only through peace can your heart stay whole days past. The traders stayed in the village, working to rebuild what they had broken. They helped tend the crops, repaired huts, and in time became part of the community they had once harmed. Talon visited them often. He watched how kindness could change even those once lost to greed. And slowly his anger faded into understanding. One night, he sat beside Ahyoka by the sacred fire. The old man looked tired, the light of his eyes dim but peaceful. Grandfather, Talon said softly, the wolves in me are quiet tonight. Then you have learned to feed them well, Ahyoka smiled. But how will I know which to listen to when I am older? Ahyoka looked into the flames. You will not always know, he said. But listen to silence, it will tell you when you've chosen wrongly. Silence is the voice of the spirit. The next morning, Ahyoka did not rise at dawn as he always did. When the villagers came to his hut, they found him seated peacefully, the flute in his lap, his face turned toward the morning sun. He had passed quietly in his sleep, the smile of calm upon his lips. The village mourned, but not with despair. They lit the sacred fire higher than ever before, and the children carried it to every home, saying, the elder's flame lives in us now. Talon stood before the fire, the flute in his hands. He played softly a melody Ahyoka had once played in the forest, when the two wolves became one. The sound rose into the air like a prayer. As the years went on, Talon became the village's new storyteller. He sat before the fire each night, the same way Ahyoka once had, and told the children, inside us all, two wolves still live. One dark as night, one bright as dawn. They are brothers, not enemies. Together they make us whole, and when a child would ask, Grandfather, did you ever meet the wolves? He would smile and say, every day. When I'm kind, I feed one. When I'm brave, I feed the other. And when I'm wise, I let them walk together. Years turned to decades. The valley flourished in peace and unity. The story of Ahyoka spread to neighboring lands of the man who tamed the wolves within and turned enemies into kin. And they said that sometimes on clear nights when the moon hung high and the fire crackled softly, you could hear two wolves howling in harmony in the distant hills. Not of anger, not of hunger, but of balance, of peace earned through pain, and love born from understanding. So, my child, listen to this last truth. The world will always test your heart. It will give you anger, fear, jealousy, pain. And in those moments, you will hear the wolves stir within. Feed your courage when you must stand strong. Feed your compassion when you must forgive. And when both grow tired, feed them silence, for silence is where the spirit heals. The story ends, but the lesson lives on. True strength is not in conquering the world, but in mastering the storm inside you. And as the fire fades, the wind carries the faint echo of a flute and the soft harmony of two wolves singing under the eternal moon.